The late shift at the diner was supposed to be quiet. Empty booths, weak coffee, and the slow hum of a fridge older than most of the customers. For Sarah, it was just a way to pay rent. 3 nights a week from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. She never expected anything strange. But here's the thing about diners that stay open all night. They attract more than just tired truck drivers and insomniacs. They attract things that can't stand the daylight. Her first red flag was the order pad. The previous shift had left a note. It said one thing: if the man in the gray hat comes in, don't serve him. Just hide. Sarah thought it was a joke, a prank between co-workers. But at 1:47 a.m., the bell above the door rang. A man in a gray hat walked in. His coat was dry even though it had been raining for hours. His shoes made no sound on the tile floor. He sat in booth 4, the same booth every late-night worker had drawn an X on in marker. This is where it gets worse. The man didn't order. He just stared at the menu, the same menu for 40 years. Then he looked up. His eyes were normal, brown, tired, human, but his mouth didn't move when he spoke. Sarah heard his voice inside her skull. It said coffee, black, and the special. There was no special. The diner hadn't had a special in 6 months. Sarah backed into the kitchen. Her manager, a heavy-set man named Greg, was mopping the floor. She told him about the man in the gray hat. Greg dropped the mop. His face went white. Greg had worked the late shift for 22 years. He said the man in the gray hat appeared every few months. Always at 1:47 a.m. Always in booth 4. And everyone who served him disappeared. Not quit. Not fired. Disappeared. Their cars stayed in the lot. Their uniforms stayed in the lockers. But they were never seen again. Greg told Sarah to hide in the walk-in freezer. Lock the door from the inside. Don't come out until the sun is up. She ran to the freezer. But here's the problem. The freezer door locked from the outside, not the inside. She realized this as she pulled the heavy handle. The latch clicked shut behind her. She was trapped. Cold air blasted from the vents. The temperature dropped to 10 degrees. She banged on the door for 15 minutes. No one came. Then she heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate, walking toward the freezer. A shadow passed under the door gap. Then a folded napkin slid through, written on it in red ink. "You forgot to ask about the special." Sarah screamed. No one heard. The diner was empty except for Greg and the man in the gray hat. But Greg wasn't answering his radio. The freezer light flickered, then died. She used her phone flashlight. The napkin was gone. In its place was a ticket from the order printer, the kind that prints in the kitchen. The ticket said, "Table 4, 1 special. Customer is waiting." The timestamp was 1:47 a.m. The date was today, but the printer wasn't connected to anything. The power was off. This is the part that breaks logic. Sarah heard the diner bell ring again. Then again. Then again. Rapid, like someone was slamming the door open and closed. Each time the bell rang, the temperature in the freezer dropped another degree. At 20 rings, her breath stopped fogging. At 30 rings, the metal shelves started cracking from the cold. At 40 rings, she heard a new sound. Chewing, wet and slow, coming from inside the wall behind the frozen meat. She pressed her ear to the wall. The chewing stopped. Then something whispered through the insulation. "Booth 4, table for 1. I've been waiting a long time." Sarah backed away. Her phone died. Complete darkness. She felt along the walls for the door. Her fingers touched something warm. Soft. Breathing. It wasn't the door. It was a face. No eyes. No nose. Just a mouth. And the mouth said, "The special is people who work late shifts." She kicked. The thing didn't move. It laughed. A sound like ice breaking underground. Then the freezer door swung open. Light flooded in. Greg was standing there with a crowbar. His hands were shaking. Behind him, the diner was empty. Booth 4 was clean. No gray hat. No man. Just a coffee cup on its side. Greg pulled Sarah out. He locked the freezer door again. He didn't say a word. He just pointed at the order printer. A new ticket was printing. Endless. The same line repeated. 1 special. Still waiting. Greg drove Sarah home that morning. He made her promise never to come back. She agreed. But 3 days later, she got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo. Booth 4. A gray hat on the table, and a napkin with her name written in red ink. She called the diner. No answer. She drove there at noon. The doors were locked. The lights were off. But the order printer was still running inside. She could see it through the window. Tickets piling up on the floor. Hundreds of them, all saying the same thing. Sarah filed a police report. The officer laughed. He said diners close all the time. But then he checked the records. The diner had been closed for 12 years. There was no Greg, no late shift, no booth 4. The building was condemned in 2012. Sarah worked there for 8 months. She had pay stubs. She had a schedule. She showed the officer. The pay stubs were blank. The schedule was written in red ink. The same red ink from the napkin. She moved to a new city. Got a new job at a gas station. Night shift again, because night shifts paid more. And she needed the money. The first week was fine. The second week, a man in a gray hat came in. He bought a coffee, black. Then he asked if she knew the special. She quit on the spot. But here's the nightmare she can't escape. Every late shift job she takes, the man finds her. Different hat, same face, same question. And every time, the order printer starts running on its own, printing tickets for a table that hasn't existed in over a decade. Psychologists call this a delusion, but Sarah has evidence. She recorded the printer once. The tape shows the machine unplugged, yet paper keeps coming out. The words are always the same. One special, customer is waiting, and at the bottom of every ticket, a small drawing. Booth 4, a gray hat, and a mouth with no face attached. She showed the recording to a paranormal investigator. The investigator watched it once. Then she handed it back. Her hands were shaking. She said, "Don't ever show this to anyone else. And don't work late shifts anymore." But Sarah has no choice. She has bills. She has debt. And every normal job she applies for disappears before the interview. The applications go missing. The emails get deleted. She's convinced the man in the gray hat is intercepting them, steering her back to the night, back to the empty diners, back to the question she can't answer. What is the special? She looked it up in old records. The diner's original menu from 1982 had a section called the Late Shift Special. It was listed as Chef's Choice, not for daytime customers. No description, no price, just a footnote that said, "Ask your server for details." No server ever asked, because no server ever came back. Sarah found a former employee, a woman named Diane who worked the late shift in 1999. Diane is now in a psychiatric hospital. She doesn't speak. She just writes the same word over and over. Special, thousands of times. On the walls, on her arms, on the floor. The doctors say it's a trauma response. Sarah knows it's something else. It's a warning. Diane served the special once. She never said what it was. But her teeth are all gone, and her fingernails are on backwards. Sarah visits Diane every month. Diane never looks at her. But last month, Diane turned. She grabbed Sarah's wrist. Her grip was inhumanly strong. She whispered 3 words. "Don't serve him." Then she pointed at the door of her room. The shadow of a gray hat was visible under the door. No one was in the hallway. The shadow moved on its own. It slid under the door and pulled around Diane's bed. Diane started screaming. The nurses came. The shadow was gone. But Sarah saw it. She saw the shadow form a mouth. And the mouth mouthed one word. Hungry. Sarah stopped visiting after that. She stopped working late shifts too. She took a day job at a bookstore. Minimum wage. But safe. For 6 months, no gray hat. No order printer. No special. She started to believe it was over. Then the bookstore got a delivery. A box addressed to her. Inside, a gray hat. And a napkin with 3 words. "We moved the diner." She ran outside. The bookstore was gone. In its place was a small building she'd never seen before. Neon sign. Coffee cup logo. The name read The Late Shift. The door was open. Inside, booth 4. A man in a gray hat. He waved at her. She didn't go in. She ran. She's been running for 3 months. Different cities, different states. But every time she stops to rest, a new diner appears. Always within walking distance. Always with a light on. Always booth 4. The man never leaves. He just waits and writes on napkins. She found one tucked into her backpack last week. It said, "The special is getting cold." She burned the napkin. The smoke formed a face. The face smiled. Then it said, in perfect English, "Late shift starts in 10 minutes. Don't be late." Sarah is writing this from a motel room. She hasn't slept in 4 days. She can see a diner from her window. It wasn't there this morning. The sign says, "Open 24 hours." Booth 4 has a gray hat on the table. The door is open. She hears the order printer running inside. Thousands of tickets. One special. And a voice in her head that sounds exactly like her own. "Just serve him. Maybe he'll leave you alone." But she knows the truth. The other servers didn't disappear. They became the special. And the man in the gray hat is never full. He's just patient. The motel phone just rang. No one is on the front desk. Sarah answered anyway. A voice said, "Your order is ready. Booth 4. Please pick it up before we close." She asked who was speaking. The voice laughed. It was the same laugh from the freezer. The laugh of something with no eyes. No nose. Just a mouth. And then the voice whispered, "You should have asked about the special when you had the chance." The line went dead. The diner's neon sign flickered. Then it spelled a new word. Sarah. She's not going to answer. She's not going to look out the window. But she can smell coffee. Black. And something else. Something cooking. Something that used to be a late shift worker. She tried to leave the motel. The door wouldn't open. The windows wouldn't break. The glass just bent. Like rubber. She screamed for help. No one came. The motel was empty. Every room had its door open. Every bed was made. But on every pillow, a gray hat. Hundreds of them. She ran to the lobby. The front desk had a single order ticket. Table 4. One special. Customer arrived. The time was 1:47 a.m. Sarah looked at her watch. It was 1:46 a.m. 1 minute left. She heard the diner bell ring from outside. Then again. Then again. Each ring closer than the last. The motel walls started sweating. Not water. Red ink. The same red ink from the napkins. It dripped down the walls and formed words. "Serve him. Serve him. Serve him." Sarah covered her ears. But the words were inside her head now. A chorus of every late shift worker who had ever disappeared. They were chanting, not screaming. Chanting, like a ritual, like a recipe. And the final ingredient was her. The front door of the motel swung open. The man in the gray hat stood there. He wasn't wearing the hat anymore. His head was smooth. No hair, no ears, no features except a mouth. A wide, wet mouth that stretched from ear to ear. He smiled. Then he spoke. Not inside her head this time. Out loud. His voice was warm, friendly, like a regular customer. He said, "I've been coming to this diner for 40 years. Best special in town. But you know what the problem is? The servers always quit before I get my order." He stepped closer. His feet left no prints on the red ink. Sarah backed into the corner. She grabbed a telephone. Dead. She grabbed a chair. The man laughed. He said, "You can't hit me with things that are real. I'm not real. Not to you. Not yet. But after I eat the special, I become real. And then I can go anywhere. Any diner. Any late shift. Any server who thinks the night is quiet." He opened his mouth. It kept opening. Wider than a mouth should open. Inside, there was no throat. Just a ticket printer. Printing endlessly. The tickets flew out and landed at Sarah's feet. Every ticket had her name on it. Every ticket said special. She remembered Diane's words. Don't serve him. Not don't serve the special. Don't serve him. The man wasn't a customer. He was the dish. The special wasn't food. It was a transaction. You serve him, he eats you. But what if you don't serve him? What if you refuse? Diane didn't serve him. Diane served the special. There's a difference. Sarah understood it in that moment. The special was a distraction. A horror story to keep you scared. But the real trap was obedience. The man couldn't take you unless you gave him something. A napkin, a coffee, an answer to his question. Sarah stopped backing away. She stood up straight. She looked at the man's endless mouth and said one word. No, the mouth stopped printing. The red ink on the walls froze. The man tilted his smooth head. He said, "No what?" Sarah said, "No to the coffee. No to the special. No to booth 4. You're not a customer. You're a ghost with a hat. And I don't serve ghosts." The man's smile faltered. For the first time, something like fear crossed his featureless face. He stepped back. The diner bell rang one last time. Then it shattered. The man in the gray hat dissolved into red ink. The ink pooled on the floor and then evaporated. The motel walls returned to normal. The doors opened. The windows became glass again. Sarah walked outside. The diner was gone. The neon sign was gone. Booth 4 was gone. In its place was an empty lot with a single napkin. She picked it up. It was blank. No red ink. No words. Just a clean, white napkin. She kept it. As proof. As a reminder. That was 3 years ago. Sarah works a day shift now. At a library. Quiet. Boring. Perfect. She never works late. She never drinks black coffee. And every time she sees a gray hat, she looks the other way. But sometimes, late at night, she hears a distant bell. A diner door opening somewhere. And she knows the man in the gray hat is still out there. Still waiting. Still hungry. But he's not waiting for her anymore. He's waiting for the next late shift worker who doesn't know how to say no. The next Sarah who thinks the night is quiet. The next special who hasn't been served yet. The napkin she kept is no longer blank. Last week, she found 3 words on it. Written in red ink, so faint she almost missed it. "We'll be back." She burned the napkin. For real this time. The ashes spelled a new word. Booth 4. She doesn't know what that means. But she just got a new job offer. Night shift. At a diner she's never heard of. The pay is double. The manager sounds friendly. And the uniform comes with a gray hat. She declined the offer. But the acceptance letter already arrived. Signed with her name. In red ink. And the signature is still wet. The late shift never really ends. It just waits for the next volunteer.